Alrighty, welcome in. I am prefacing the beginning of this podcast with I have 3 kids upstairs by myself. Hypothetically, they are napping / having quiet time right now. But we will see. I have 2 monitors, if you're watching on video, next to me. And we're going to just hope that it goes okay. I'm going to be honest, it's not crushing at the moment. We have not quite settled, but the plan for the day went awry a little bit. And
positive thinking, Jeff.
Positive thinking. So, if there was ever a day to incentivize me to be efficient, this is it. Knowing me, it's not going to happen, but we're going to try.
Absolutely not.
We're going to try because this is something I've been wanting to talk about for a little bit because I've been having this conversation with a lot of clients, as is the way that I get a lot of the topics for discussion here on the pod. Yeah. So, we are going to dive in today.
Let's dive in.
We're going to be talking about motivation.
Oh, goodness.
And how do I get motivated? What do I do when I'm not motivated? All of that sort of a thing. And I think we've talked about on here before the kind of motivation triangle or the cycle of motivation, which is action leads to results, which leads to motivation. Have we talked about that? I'm sure we have.
I know I've heard about it, but I don't know if it was here.
So I'm going to start there because it's the most important part, but we're going to dig into the parts of this that we're in charge of. Because when we talk about motivation, we're really talking about like the get up to go and do it. And a lot of people are like discipline over motivation, which is absolutely true. Mm-hmm. But like when we're talking about discipline over motivation, we're oftentimes talking about like the idea of the David Goggins of the world. Like I wake up at 3 a.m. and I run 2 marathons. And you know what I mean? Like that's what people think of when they think of discipline.
Yep.
Like I don't do what I want to do, or I do what I don't want to do.
Yeah.
And to some degree that is discipline. But when we think about discipline, it's really about making decisions with a clear mind to make success easy regardless of circumstances. And so we talked about this on the last episode that we did together, like setting yourself up for success.
Yep.
I talked about it on the video that I posted today where I did, it's July 3rd. So 4th of July for, us in America, big holiday. Everybody drinks and blows stuff up because, America. That's what we do in America. Get drunk and blow things up. That's my post for tomorrow, actually.
I cannot wait to hear.
It's like the most accurate.
Oh, yeah. I can't wait to hear the horror stories from my friends who work in the ER tomorrow.
Yeah. No, there's some wild stuff that goes on. But so it's a lot of drinking and the idea of like you can do drinking and not have it derail you if you're set up for success with some boundaries. Like, hey, I'm going to eat before I go and I'm going to have a limit. Like, let sober you make the decisions for drunk you. Yes. Like, I will have no more than 3 drinks. You know what I mean? Like, or I know what I'm going to eat when I get there. So you don't have to make the decision when your inhibitions are down. This is why there are no Oreos in my house, is because I don't have the discipline, quote unquote, to not eat an entire row of Oreos, even though I don't really like them all that much. Right. And then I feel not motivated to keep going because I feel like I failed. Right. So when the action results motivation cycle is really about setting ourselves up to take positive actions so that we get positive results, so we get positive motivation. This cycle works the other direction too. So the idea is actions lead to results. Like actions have consequences. This is the case for every action that we take. And whatever those results are, drive our motivation to take further action in that pattern. So that can go positive or it could go negative. So example B would be, I have Oreos. I eat the entire sleeve of Oreos. That's the action that I take. The result is I go, I didn't even really enjoy that. Like I have no discipline. Like that was just like mindless and not at all. It was fine, but it's not like that was a memorable experience, and I wish that I hadn't done that. There's guilt, there's shame, there's all those feelings associated with it. None of those are positive results. And so what happens to my motivation as a result of that? I'm less motivated to do anything, because it's like, what's the point of doing anything? Because I just screw it up all the time.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so then I take more, and this is how we spiral downward. We can either use this cycle to our advantage and move forward, or we can use this cycle to our disadvantage and move downward. And all of it comes down to the thing that drives all of it is the action, right? And so oftentimes we're focused on the action. We're always focused on the action. I am doing the things, I'm doing the things, I'm doing the things. And I want to be making positive decisions. And most of that is made easier independent of motivation, right? Like oftentimes the cycle that people think is, I got to get myself motivated to take action. I got to get myself up to go to the gym. I got to get myself up to prep food or cook, chicken. And that's flawed, because you're relying on your feelings to dictate what you do. And your feelings are going to modulate based on a variety of factors. I had a client say this to me the other day. She was like, I don't want my body and what I do to be determined or fluctuate with how I feel. Like I'm in a rough spot in my life, and therefore like how my body looks and feels follows.
Yeah.
And then usually what happens is I feel worse.
Right.
I'm like, that doesn't help me feel better about my situation. And so we have to, in order to change our situation in whatever context, we'll use fitness as an example, but this could be true of business or jobs or family or any of these situations. In order to do it, I have to do the thing regardless of how I feel first. Right? I could be not motivated to do I have to go to the gym when I don't feel like going to the gym. Like that action has to come first. Like sometimes you can manufacture motivation out of thin air, or you get an external,
external is always what's super helpful for me.
Yeah, you have
regardless of what subject matter it is.
Yeah, you have either a negative or a positive that spurs you toward it. And so that can happen, certainly, right? But relying on that is challenging because you're not in control of it. Yeah. And when it's gone, when the tail of it's gone, then you're left with, all right, what do I do? You have a friend, God forbid, we have a friend or a family member who gets sick, or, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, I got to really start taking care of my health. That could be a great motivator, and you start taking action. But at some point, this is just human nature, that doesn't have enough to keep us going.
It needs to be internal.
When it gets hard.
Yeah. Because
it does get hard. And it's not even that it gets hard, it gets boring.
That's what it is. People get tired of doing the same thing over and over again.
100%. And this is why novelty is a big challenge in the fitness industry. And we might do a whole thing about the lie of novelty, but the premise of it is we think that we're in the day and age, and I'm not going to, who am I to come? In the day and age that we're in particular, right, with social media and quick reels that are longer than right now, you want to know what's trending on social media? This is the dumbest thing ever. And the fact that I have to know these things for my job is 1 second reels. 1 second. Have you seen these?
No.
No information. No. It's literally just a short, it's like a boomerang almost, even though boomerangs are longer than a second, but it's like a boomerang, somebody just doing a small movement with a little thing over it. And then you read the caption. So they get 900 views, even just while you're reading the caption.
Okay, and so I have seen these.
And so it spurs it on. Before that, it was the 7-second reels where you do If I wanted to, you know what I mean? And I did a few of them, and I was like, this is dumb. I don't like playing this game because it's an attention grab. It's we are easily distracted in our,
God.
you know, like how often are you watching a show and scrolling your phone at the same time? You know what I mean? Like
I have to consciously put my phone down when I'm watching like a movie or a show because it's just human nature. You just have it right here.
You'll pick
so
it
you
up.
always
It's just
grab
what
it.
you do.
Mm-hmm.
I tried on Sunday, just as an aside, I tried on Sunday to have a phone-free day. I literally left my phone upstairs. Well, it would have gone really well, except for Megan had to go to the doctor. And so then I'm like, I have to have my phone available to me. Now, I normally have my watch, but if I'm not, my watch isn't on our cell plan. So it's just like, if I'm in the house and the phone's upstairs, I can answer a call on my watch or you know, see a text message or something like that. But if I'm not in the house, I have to have my phone with me. Otherwise, I can't get. So I want to do that more. I might do it tomorrow on the 4th. It's just be like phone free day, and I'm just here.
So if we want to keep going down this aside rabbit hole, because it wouldn't be our podcast if we didn't. My brother does this wonderful thing that he has like a box that has dice in it. Mm-hmm. And every evening they roll the dice and that they multiply that by 10. And that's however many minutes they need to lock their phones away and just spend time with each other.
Oh, I love that.
Like, that's so nice.
2 dice or 1?
2 dice. So, I mean,
2 hours is on the table.
Exactly. It could be 20 minutes. It could be 2 hours. So,
jeez. 2 hours. That's a long time to sit and look at people.
They only have 1 kid, though.
Oh, well, that's valid.
It's easier.
That's valid. I don't know if it's easier or harder.
He's a baby. That's helpful.
Yeah, that's fair.
He's a year.
But we get into these easily distracted modes, and so that's why people diet hop.
Yes.
Right? Like, I'm not seeing the same results that I saw at the very beginning, right? Because you lose 10 pounds in the first 3 weeks because you just pee it all out. Yeah. And you're like, all of a sudden, now you get to a reasonable, sustainable weight loss rate, and you're like, it's not working anymore. I have to change it. Or you're working out and you're like, I'm bored of the workouts because I did this workout last week.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh man, like it's the same thing. It must not be. I'm not as sore as I was last time. I'm not crawling out of here like a baby giraffe just figuring out its legs for the first time. Like, it's the lie of novelty is that we need different in order to get results, and that's an attention thing. And so when it gets boring, motivation wanes because we're not getting the same results in terms of how we feel, whether it's a physical quantifiable, the scale isn't going down, or how we feel we're doing. We're not getting the same high of like, yeah, me, I'm doing it, go me, which is great, but that feeling is diminishing, and so then the motivation diminishes. And so we can't rely on the motivation, and the action is one, we set ourselves up so that the action becomes the default, right? Like, that's when you're motivated is the best time to do this. So at the very beginning, what we're trying to do is develop habits and kind of the environment for you to be successful. I've said this before, like fish swim well in water.
That's correct.
I'm very good. I've learned this fact, but this is about setting yourself up with an environment in which you can thrive within the boundaries of this. So you set up the boundaries so that you can thrive within those boundaries. Something like, I don't eat after 8 p.m. It's not that eating after 8 p.m. is bad, but like, what kinds of foods are you eating after 8 p.m.?
Right.
Probably not the best choices.
Snacky things, right? We're not truly hungry. We're just craving something.
Yeah. That's why I said, hey, a good boundary when you're drinking is don't eat after you start drinking. Because what decisions are you making when you've had 3 drinks? What do you go to?
Not good ones.
Probably not the best ones.
I'm gravitating towards the Cool Ranch Doritos after 3.
Yes. Which are outstanding.
Oh my gosh, they're so good.
So this is the idea of like we set up the boundaries so that the actions become almost default. But it can start to get stale. it can start to get like, is this really it? Like, is this all I do?
Yeah.
So this is a conversation I'm having with a client recently who's doing all the things that she ought to be doing and is seeing good results.
Good for her.
It's like, it's not fast. It's not sexy. It's not flashy. It's like 0.5 pound to 0.75 pound to 1 pound a week of body fat. You know, she's getting stronger, but not like, it's not like she's making these big leaps in her weights like she was at the very beginning. Like she's not jumping from 20s to 25s to 30 like she was the very first time through. It's just like, all right, I maybe got one more rep on one set with the same weight. Like, people are always mind blown by the fact that, like, you want to know what I did yesterday? I did Bulgarian split squats, and I did 3 sets of them. And all that I did differently from the previous week is I did a total. So this was a safety bar on my back. I did a total of 10 more pounds on the bar for less reps than I did the week before. Like, there are weeks where I did an incline bench press this week. I did 1 more rep on 1 set. The rest of it was exactly the same. Like, and that feels boring because it's not the results that we're used to. It's not the results that we're grown accustomed to. It's not the results that are like, oh, that's gonna get me back going. Like, I can't wait to get 2 more reps. Like,
we just have it so ingrained in us. And I think for me, it started in high school weight training class, which you know is run by your gym teacher, who they are wonderful. But I don't know that there's necessarily the best people to be teaching weight training.
Some of them are great, and some of them are not.
Some of them are great, but I don't think Mr. Tibbetts. Love him so
She's
much.
Catching strays on the podcast.
But I don't think that he was necessarily the person to be teaching me about Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. Absolutely. Teaching me about weight training, probably not. But that's where it goes, because when we were, at least from my experience, when we were in high school, it was every week you were trying to add more every week with no necessary stop in that trajectory. So it's, we didn't really talk about maxing out. We didn't talk about here's the weight that you're comfortably lifting this. Keep with this one for a while. It was nope, every week you're adding weight. So I think that's for me, that's where mine still stems from. And I look back at the weights that I lift, and sometimes I get a little discouraged if I've either haven't gone up, or there was a week I had to go down because I had some shoulder pain, so I couldn't do the certain movement in the weight that I'd been doing, and that was very discouraging. Even though long term it ended up being better because I could still do work, not take the 0, but rest my shoulder a little bit. It does mess with your motivation.
100%. Well, and the same thing with the messaging, and we've talked about this a lot with the messaging and the marketing that's out there about like lose 20 pounds in 12 weeks. And like, it's about speed of weight loss and body composition results. It's about like, if you're not losing weight that fast, then you're probably doing something wrong. Because my friend Sally lost 50 pounds in a minute and a half, on whatever it is. And it's hard when and I've said this before, expectations drive perception, perception drives reality. And so when we are expecting things to go a certain way, we're expecting certain results, we are going to perceive our results through that lens. And when we perceive them through that lens, then that becomes our reality. So if I'm expecting to lose 2 pounds and I lose 1 pound, I'm going to perceive that 1 pound as a failure. Therefore, I'm a failure. I must be a failure because that was my expectation. So this has been the big thing that I've been talking to clients about, which is at some point when motivation wanes, we are actually in control. This is where people the mind blows a little bit. And this comes to that point right now, which is we're in charge of, typically we think we're only in charge of one part of this cycle. We're in charge of the action. And then the result is the result. And then the motivation is the motivation. And then that. So we think we're only in charge of the action, but we're actually in charge of both the action and the results because of our perception of them based on our expectations. So we take the action, but I could be blowing past good results because they're not meeting my expectations. Or I could be bringing attention to results that ordinarily wouldn't have even shown up on my radar because I'm looking for them. So the way to manufacture, quote unquote, motivation is to bring attention to results that you are getting, but might not be showing up on your radar because they're either A, not what you're looking for, or B, not meeting an unrealistic expectation. So the first one we've talked about is the expectation thing, right? Like, hey, if I set your expectations appropriately low, right? Aim properly low,
right?
Something that is actually achievable. You don't want to set it too low, but if I set my goal for my business for the month of July to make $100,000 in the month of July, because there are other people who I'm friends with in the industry who run a similar business to me, who make $100,000 in a month, if I set that as my expectation, I'm going to be disappointed. Because I am not going to make $100,000 next month. I don't care what I do. I could start an OnlyFans and I wouldn't make $100,000 next month. It's just not happening.
Oh, God. I think we've all thought about starting an OnlyFans.
Well, you just see some of the numbers, and it's just like,
I know, it's
that's like, alarming. Yeah,
like,
you're like, can I sell my soul for 12 months and then never have to work again? Like,
I'm like,
what are we talking about?
I have cute feet.
Yeah, just the feet stuff, man. Like, I'll do a faceless one.
Absolutely.
Just sell the feet, man. Well, the amount of comments I get whenever I accidentally post something about, like, with my feet in it, like when I was doing the like daily weigh-ins and I did it with my bare feet, I got enough comments about it. Or I was like, okay, I'm wearing socks every day now because this is uncomfortable.
Negative comments or like, oh, I see your toes there.
It was maybe in the middle. Like it wasn't like I don't like your, but it also wasn't like send me more. It was like, oh, your feet like are in this photo, like, you know, whatever. I was like, all right, I don't want that to be a thing. Like, I don't want anybody to comment on my feet.
You're known as the feet trainer.
The feet trainer. Yeah, that's a whole mess that I don't want to get into.
But I think we may have found your OnlyFans handle. So there's that.
The feet trainer? That's just terrible. That's so uncomfortable. All right, we need to divert from this conversation rapidly.
Move on.
So setting appropriate expectations is an important thing. All right, so that I'm meeting or exceeding those expectations kind of on a regular basis. But the other thing, and this is kind of where we almost can manufacture motivation in a really positive way, which is bringing attention to results that we are getting but not necessarily observing. Okay. So I'll give an example that's not fitness related. So I had a friend say to me a while back, and it's kind of stuck with me. Parenting is a long-term play.
Yeah, it is.
Like the results you get from like this cycle absolutely works in parenting, right? Like I did this, I got these results, and then that's either going to make me want to or not want to do this again, right? Like, so if I am, for instance, right, I do something fairly small, fairly low key, or with my kids, this is a really great example, right? What do you do when your kids do something that's good?
I always congratulate her, or
you praise them.
Good job.
Like positive affirmation for the thing that they did. So my son, my oldest son Levi, was doing something, and his sister was stuck, and he just goes over and helps her. He's like, I got you, Sissy, and he helps her out. I think she was stuck building magnetiles or something like that. He's like, she couldn't figure it out. And he's like, I can help. And then he helps her out without me saying anything. And then he kind of goes right back to playing. And that was a really positive thing. And that was a good action that he took. But his sister is 2.5. Like, she didn't really acknowledge it. Like, she might have been not frustrated anymore. But that's a really easy thing for him to not get any results from. And so he may not be motivated to do it again. He might, because he's a good kid.
He is a good kid.
But if I bring attention to it, however small, it doesn't have to be huge, but I'm like, hey, thanks, that was really kind. Thanks for helping your sister. He's like, and then I said that, and he said, are you proud of me, Dad? And I was like, yeah, bud, that was really great. Like, I'm proud. Are you proud of yourself? And he was like, yeah, I am. I helped her.
What a
that little 10-second interaction brought attention to a result that he got. I was like, look how happy your sister is. I'm proud of you. Are you proud of yourself? From the action that he took, which was not really something that he was looking for attention from. It wasn't like that could have gone unnoticed. But what is more likely to happen? Is it guaranteed to happen? No. Of course, 20 minutes later, he punches her, right? Like it goes the other way. But a couple days later, he did help her again. And I praised him again, right? Like, it's just, he's more likely to do in that same setting, in that same scenario, he's more likely to do it again because I brought attention to, he got results from taking an action that could have gone unnoticed. That kind of makes sense in that sort of thing. So we bring positive attention to something in the same sense that we would discipline them if we bring negative attention to, because the cycle works both ways. You take a negative action. I want to make sure that there are negative consequences. There's a negative result to this. So you are unmotivated to do it again because you didn't like the consequences. It goes vice versa. So we want to bring attention to things that we might be glazing over as that's just kind of what it is. So I give an example, which is on what night was it? It was Saturday night. We went to an Italian restaurant downtown to celebrate my mother-in-law's birthday, and she's been wanting to go to this one for a long time. It's in downtown Exeter, called Cornicello. You can't get a reservation at Cornicello.
Is it new?
It's newish. It's a couple years old. It's where 11 Water Street was.
What a great spot.
Great spot, right on the water. But, I mean, they can seat 35 people in this place. It is tiny. And you can't get a reservation. Online, they're booked out 4 weeks. They only show 4 weeks, and they're always booked. And then you can't call them because they don't answer the phone. So the only way I've gotten a reservation is I walk in.
Yep.
And they can book further ahead. And so I booked 8 weeks ahead. You know what I mean?
Hey, use your charms.
Yeah, and we booked in and we got in, and my mother-in-law was super excited about it because she's been wanting to go since they opened. And we'd been a couple of times, Megan and I. And so we were looking forward to it. I knew exactly what I was going to get, right? They have the best bruschetta. They call it bruschetta.
That is the correct pronunciation.
Italian. Yeah, so they have the best bruschetta, which is fantastic. I was going to get a drink. And then they have this pistachio olive oil cake, which if you're listening to that and you're like, that delicious. Doesn't sound... It is lighter than air with homemade whipped cream. It is sent from heaven. It is. Oh my God. It is of the angels. Manna from heaven is this cake. And so I knew, and then I was going to have I got lamb, right? It was lamb chops and whatever. And so I knew what I was going to have going into it, right? I know ahead of time, I'm going to do this. And so I made a couple of decisions throughout my day.
Yeah.
I took a couple of actions throughout my day that allowed me to eat that and know that I was within kind of the boundaries of what I was trying to do for the day in terms of calories and overall whatever. I'm not tracking it, but I know that portion-wise, that puts me around where I was going to do.
Yeah.
And then I was able to do that guilt-free. Mm-hmm. And so the difference in between, like, I took a couple of actions and now I can enjoy this guilt-free mm-hmm. versus I didn't take any actions and now I'm eating this and I feel a little bit guilty about it. So what's the result that I want to pay attention to? I want to praise myself for the actions that I took for the day mm-hmm. because it's like, hey, look at what I did and what's the positive outcome of being conscientious and intentional with my food throughout the day. Mm-hmm. I'm enjoying this food mm-hmm. guilt-free.
Can I ask specifically, did you just focus more on fiber and protein and try to avoid some of the like potatoes and rice, which are delicious and necessary? But
I just was a little bit, I just made some decisions mm-hmm. in like with my meals that I would normally do. I just pulled mm-hmm. back about 3 portions of carbs.
Yeah. Okay.
3 or 4 portions of carbs. And so the way that my day were, I'll tell you exactly what I did. Because this is in the summer guide that I put out. So side note, if you didn't get it, I have a summer blueprint that I put out that I'm really proud of. And it has an example day that's basically this day. I did it with cheesecake instead, but it was basically the same thing. I love cheesecake. So it was, so I have my breakfast is a couple of eggs with egg mm-hmm. whites mm-hmm. scrambled, oatmeal and blueberries and mm-hmm. cinnamon. Delicious. Right? Then my snacks, morning and afternoon, were a protein shake with frozen strawberries blended. Mm-hmm. My lunch was a chicken fajita wrap mm-hmm. with grilled chicken, peppers and onions on a high fiber wrap. Mm-hmm. And then I had my dinner exactly like I described it to you. Mm-hmm. So now I can,
attainable.
Like my numbers are maybe higher than other people, but that was for me. But like what I did was I pulled back. All right, normally I would put peanut butter in one of those shakes. Maybe my afternoon snack would have been, some sort of a toast with something on. You know what I mean? It would have been mm-hmm. a little bit of a different thing. I might have had another serving of carbs with my lunch, mm-hmm. right? So I made a couple of decisions within my day mm-hmm. to kind of reduce that. And then I also usually have an evening snack. Mm-hmm. And so that gets rolled into it as well. And so like
I'm going to assume after that meal, you really didn't need
No, I didn't need one. So I didn't need the evening snack. So the evening snack comes in, my normal dinner's in there. And mm-hmm. then I had kind of bought for myself 3 extra servings. Mm-hmm. So I had the 3 servings from my day. I had 2 servings for my evening snack kicking around. So that's mm-hmm. 5 like bonus servings. And that was 2 for my drink, mm-hmm. 2 for my bruschetta, and 1 for the amount of olive oil cake that I did.
What I like is that you didn't talk about that you went to the gym and worked out extra hard to earn this treat meal.
Absolutely not. No, I mean I walked.
Of course.
I didn't work out that day. I didn't work out that day, but I was conscientious to like, hey, I'm going to hit my movement goal, whatever my goal. Yeah. It was a rest day for me. So
you do a lot of walking.
I try to walk.
Yeah.
I try to walk as much as I can, particularly in the summer when it's nice out. Mm. But I was like, I'm gonna hit my movement goal. I'm gonna be conscientious with I'm not gonna do an extra workout to do this. I'm just gonna do my movement goal. Mm-hmm. And
are we checking the monitors?
I'm just making sure. Hang on. We're gonna maybe take a pause here. My son's calling for me. We're gonna take a little pause. But I did my movement goals, and then I'll hop up for a second. I did my movement goals. I did my my small changes, and that allowed me the flexibility to do it and enjoy it. So all that I did was I just was super mindful with eating that meal. Mm-hmm. Like I savored every bite.
I'm sure it was delicious.
Which is delicious,
and I focusing on the enjoyment.
I could focus on the enjoyment of it. Yeah. I'm like, this is the reward. Mm-hmm. For like what doesn't feel fun. Mm-hmm. Like it doesn't feel, or not fun, but like it doesn't feel sexy. Like it's not flashy to be like, oh, I just ate a couple of smaller things today. Mm-hmm. But making those, and I walked like, mm-hmm. oh, big deal. Like, but the results of that is that I could enjoy this food mm-hmm. totally guilt free. So the idea is if we bring attention to these things that we might have skipped over, mm-hmm. and what doing kind of the boring allows us to do, then we are more likely to continue to do it. Right? Continue to do things that feel boring. So another example is one of the questions that I ask on my weekly questionnaire that you've gotten, and I've talked about a lot with clients, is like, what's one thing you were physically able to do this week? And so it's oftentimes something like, I carried a bunch of, bags of bark mulch from here to there, or I chased my kids around, or I went on a hike, or I did something that I wasn't otherwise able to do, or I wouldn't maybe have otherwise been able to do. And so there's something to bringing attention to those results that, like, I'm like, nothing is not an answer here. Like, you have to do something. You have to pick something. Another one of the questions is, what's one thing you did well this week? Like, focusing on bringing attention to celebrating the positive things that we do, because there's oftentimes where we're taking good actions, but they're going uncelebrated.
Yep.
They're going unnoticed. And so when we're not getting external motivation, right, or we're not seeing the same results that we're used to, or, it slows down like it does with weight training and even weight loss. Like, as you get closer to your weight loss goal, like, people tell you, if you have like 5 more pounds from like where you want to be, like, that's a lot harder to lose than the first 5 pounds.
Yes.
And so it slows down. The process slows down because you're closer to the goal. And so you're not seeing the same sorts of things that you always have. And so it's a matter of like Megan, my wife, she's doing great. But she's still a little bit further away from where she still is, like, in her head she wants to be. But like, she's celebrating. Like, she went to the store the other day and everything she tried on fit. You know what I mean? Like,
that's a huge thing.
It's a huge win. Like, she's like, I liked how some things fit, because there was a long period of time where she like hated shopping. She used to love shopping. Now my wallet doesn't like this. Because
that's
she
okay.
was
That's
like,
why we're starting an
these
OnlyFans
pants
account.
are $158. I'm like, are they made out of panda? Like, what are we talking about?
Where is she shopping?
It was like a
TJ
boutique
Maxx,
shop in downtown.
TJ Maxx.
Well, she went to Marshall's then, and she was like, she got like 9 things for $18 or something like that. She's like, don't let me ever shop at a boutique store again. But the idea of I can shop for and like, that's, now that might be like an obvious result. You know what I mean? Like, that might be a little bit more obvious, but just like bringing attention to like, oh, these pants fit a little bit better than I like, or like, oh, I didn't double check in the mirror when I put these on to see. Like, one of my clients he's a bigger dude, but he's like, as he's lost weight, he's like, t-shirts for bigger guys, when he lifts his hands above his head, his shirt would come up. And he's like, now my shirt doesn't come up over my belly and I'm not worried about it. Like, that's bringing attention to those things.
Yeah.
That aren't the typical, but like celebrating the day to day. Celebrating.
We've talked about the non-scale victories.
Yeah.
But I like that these are those, but even on a more minute scale, so that you have more opportunities to celebrate.
Yeah, 100%.
I love it.
And bring like, but that requires a conscientious effort.
Yeah.
To think about, what does what I'm doing allow me to do? That's the question that we need to be asking. Like, what does it allow me to do that I might not otherwise be able to do? And it also comes back to the conversations that we've had about like the point A and point B. About like, what does point B look like for you? What do you want to be able to do? Fitness is about freedom, the freedom to say yes. Like, what are you saying yes to that you might not have done before? But it's this idea of like, if it doesn't mean that you can't celebrate typical victories, but when you're like, my motivation's drying up, it's usually because the results are drying up. And they're not necessarily drying up, but we're not noticing them as much. They're not at the same volume that we're used to. And so we have to ask one of two. It's either one of two things. Either I'm not getting results anymore, or I'm not, or I guess one of three results. I'm not getting results anymore, in which case I need to look at my actions. 2 is the results are not meeting the expectations that I have for them, so maybe I need to adjust my expectations. Or 3, I'm getting results and I'm just not paying attention to them because
That's probably where most of us fall.
Yes. Yes, because fitness done right is boring.
Oh, yeah.
It just is, and it's sold as sexy and flashy and fun, but it's boring.
I can guarantee you the only thing that keeps me going is that the types of exercises I do, though it's very consistent as far as the types of exercise, types of workouts, types of lifts I'm doing, it's the people that I do it with. That's the only thing that keeps me going. Because I enjoy going and hearing about your kids, and I enjoy going and hearing about Kelly's son, and I enjoy going and hearing about Meg's kids. Like, it's nice having these interactions and these relationships.
That's, though, a result that oftentimes we could blow past. Right? Like, oh, look at the community that I've built. Like, that's a cool thing. Like, I think I told this story, but like we all went. So I have this 6 a.m. group that I've been coaching for over 5 years now, and 4 years ago, July 1st of 2020, we opened the gym back up after COVID, and I was like the only trainer back because Meg couldn't get coverage for the kids, and Kelly wasn't back. It was basically just me. I was just doing everything as much as I could in the mornings. And so I was 6 a.m. every day, and we were doing this boot camp class outside in the parking lot a couple days a week. And then I was doing Ignite in small bubbles. And then when the fall came, a lot of the people who were in boot camp started to come inside and kind of developed this 6 a.m. group, which has now grown to like there were 20 people in there yesterday morning lifting, doing stuff. And it was like not an issue. Right, like that group used to be like 6 people, and there's on any given day there's 30 people that could sign up for that class.
Yeah,
and there was I think it was last fall, maybe over the winter. One of the couples, Chris and Wendy, who I love, who have been there since July. So in July they were doing the outside classes, and then they started coming inside when the fall hit. So they've been around for 4 years now, and they are like just the staples of the group, like of that. And they invited all of the 6 a.m. people to come to their new place in downtown Portsmouth that they had been spending the entire time that I'd known them building. Like it took them 4 years to get this thing like renovated and built in downtown Portsmouth. It was a great place. And they brought everybody over, and we went up, we had drinks, we had apps. It was a great time. And I was standing there looking around the room, and I was like, this isn't a normal thing. Like that everybody showed up. Everybody showed. People like moved plans around to be there, or like stopped in. There was one couple who stopped in like in between like 2 of their friends' birthday parties for like an hour because they were like, we left this one early and we're going late to this one because we wanted to be here for this. And it was like that's something that for me, within my business and what I do, like that would be something that would be easy to maybe not bring attention to. Is like, and I'm not necessarily saying I'm then the catalyst of this, but I've been part of building a fairly unique community in the fitness space in our area that is just not common. I talk to coaches all over the country, all over the world, and I told them that this is what happened. They're like, dude, that's pretty awesome. Like, that's really cool. Like, there are a lot of coaches who never get to experience something like that. And so in the midst of what I'm trying to do, the day-to-day boring stuff of like every Tuesday and Thursday, I wake up at 4:30 in the morning and I go to the gym and I coach and I miss the morning with my kids, and my wife has to like do the drop-offs, and it's a whole logistical thing, and it's a challenge for me to get there. It'd be very easy for me to get lost in the day-to-day because those people aren't like you get PRs every now and then, but like people are there. We're doing the thing. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like we're doing the thing. To not bring attention to the big moments, but then also the day to day, like they ask me how my kids are doing.
Mm-hmm. And we genuinely care.
Genuinely care. Ask me how Megan's doing. How am I doing? Like, how's my online business going? How's, the house search when we were looking for a house? Like, mm-hmm. All of this stuff. Like when we had the twins, like they all like got us, like everybody got us like, bridal, I don't know, like they all pitched in and got, when we bought the house, they got like a $300 or $400 Home Depot gift card or something like that from that group of people. Like they all chipped in and did that. Like for Christmas, I get like these little, and it's not like, oh, that's a big thing, but I'll get tequila from people, mm-hmm. like that's what I get from, I'm like, oh, you're like, you listen and you care. And, yep. and it's like, okay, like I need to bring attention to and celebrate in business and in parenting and in fitness and all of these things. I need to celebrate and bring attention to the things that I could normally gloss over. Mm-hmm. Of like, yeah, that's not a big deal. Like, mm-hmm. no, pause. Mm-hmm. That's a big deal. Like,
and I think you may recognize them, but not tie it directly to mm-hmm. whatever this lack of motivation that you're experiencing. You might notice this thing, but it's realizing that it's a part of this other thing.
What's the action that led to the result?
Yeah.
So you want to celebrate it, but you also want to be like, why did that happen? Mm-hmm. Because there's not a lot in life mm-hmm. that's like immediately satisfying mm-hmm. and goes exactly according to plan. And mm-hmm. so for anything that has any sort of legs on it, any sort of tail on it, anything that it takes time, we have to find ways to celebrate in the interim. Mm-hmm. And we can set benchmarks but like the day to day is very easy to just be like, mm-hmm. like parenting's like that. It's just like, sometimes it's like, you know what we did today? You know what's a win today?
They're alive.
They're alive today. Like some days it's that, know, but like, that's what I'm talking about with expectations. Like if you go into it, but like, all right, we're going to crush. And that's usually based, like our expectations are usually determined by outside forces.
Yes.
Right? Like comparison and all of these things.
Comparison is the thief of joy.
The thief of joy. And so we want to compare. We've talked about this, compare internally.
Yeah.
Compare like your results to your results. Mm-hmm. Compare your results to an expectation that you set. Mm-hmm. And I'll end this because I thought this was I watched this interview the other day. I forget the heck what his name is. It's Olympic swimmer right now who's doing really, really well. Mm-hmm. Did well in Tokyo and is going to go to Paris and crush. He's a sprinter. Forget his name. I don't remember his name. But he got asked in an interview with Graham
Nash,
Bellingson or whatever. He does a lot of these big interviews. He was like, "Hey, how do you feel about these comparisons that you're getting to Michael Phelps?" And he's like, "Dude, no. First of all,
no one can be compared to Michael Phelps.
Can't be, but like, if I was trying to beat Michael Phelps, I would be disappointed. Mm-hmm. I would be disappointed. Like, I can't. I'm not going to be, and it's not. That's not self-deprecating. He's like, he's the best ever.
Yeah, I think he's the most decorated.
The most decorated swimmer. Olympian of all time. Like over a decade was the most dominant in, you know what I mean? It's like if I were to be, it's like anybody who compares, anybody who comes into the league, NFL or NBA or whatever, they're like, is he going to be as good as Tom Brady or Michael Jordan or LeBron James or Tiger Woods? It's like,
yeah.
If that's the standard you're measuring yourself, like, or Scotty Scheffler is a guy in golf right now who's dominating the world of golf right now, like is is going on a run like we haven't seen in a long time, and people are comparing him to Tiger Woods, and it's like he's not like he's doing really, really well, but he's like you're comparing him to like a guy who has just mind-boggling results. And so if you're comparing him to him, he's gonna pale in comparison.
Yeah,
like he's just going to. Or, and again, a lot of these are sports because this is a good, but like Jason Tatum is a player for the Boston Celtics, and everybody's like, oh, he's not, that great. He's like you could probably argue he's like the 5th, 6th, 7th best player in the NBA right now. And people are like saying that like it's not a good thing because you're comparing him to the best players in the world or the best of all time. And you're like, you are the 5th best person on the planet Earth right now at what you do. That's unbelievable.
Pretty darn good.
Unbelievable. But also, like, when you hear him talk about it, or the swimming dude talk about it, what is he saying? He's like, I don't actually care whether or not I touch the wall first. I have in my head a time goal that I'm setting out for myself. And so if I beat my time goal and I touch the wall second, I feel like I would be satisfied. And he actually said it in Tokyo. He didn't hit a single one of his time goals, but he won like all goals. And so that was something where he had to be like, okay, he like was not feeling good about it. And he's like, I set an unreasonable standard for myself. He did incredibly well, but his expectations were so high that he wasn't able to meet them.
God, yeah. Can you imagine that?
He had I think he had 5 gold medals, and he wasn't satisfied because he had these unrealistic. And again, it wasn't because he was comparing himself to Michael Phelps. It was because he was like, I didn't do well enough by my standards. So if that's the case, then you have to set a reasonable goal. If you're actually seeing results, like it's a little bit of like take a step back and you've lost like 8 pounds. You've lost 8 pounds in maybe 10 weeks or 12 weeks or whatever it is. That's great.
That's great.
Now, if you had the goal of losing 8 pounds in 4 weeks, that's going to feel terrible. So we have to do internal comparison, set a realistic goal, have a realistic expectation, but celebrate process-oriented wins, celebrate things along the way, because if we're comparing our results to what we think we ought to get, we are very likely going to be disappointed. And it's not necessarily that we took the wrong action. It's that we're taking the correct action and we feel like the results aren't what we want. And so then we don't get motivated. And so then we stop taking the action. And that's what keeps us stuck. We have to let the actions give us the results that they're actually giving us. And then be honest with it, right? Like if this swimmer dude didn't hit his goals, then he has to ask 2 questions. Were my expectations too high? Or did I not do what I was capable of doing? Balloons, right? Did I not take all of the appropriate actions? Because those are the 2 things in my control. My expectations and whether or not I bring attention to it, and my actions. If I took all of the actions, if I did what I should be doing, and my results aren't what I expected them to be, then it's a problem with my expectations or whether or not I'm drawing attention to the right results. So in order to keep taking action, in order to stay motivated, we're in charge of the actions, but we're also in charge of our perception of our results. Boom. And we were not
like
efficient.
This episode. Ooh.
This has been a good one.
This is a good one.
I feel pretty good about it. A little quicker. Not that much quicker, though. All right. I'm going to go deal with this screaming daughter.
Oh, congrats. All right.
Yeah,
I'm going to go deal with my daughter, who's very quietly playing across the hall. So same.
Yeah, this is an expectations and not comparing situation for me where I'm like, okay.
My child is 10. So if she was still screaming across the hall, there'd be some other things happening.
Yeah.
Good luck,
These are
ma'am.
the results of my own actions.
Yep.
I mean, the twin thing wasn't really, but you know, having kids. Well, we're gonna stop. I was gonna go really, really far with that. We're gonna stop right there. All right.
Good idea.
Thanks for listening, everybody. If you want the summer guide, by the way, send me a message. Just says summer, and I'll send it to you about how to roadmap summer. But appreciate everybody listening. We'll talk to you soon.